Okay, well, everybody can hear me okay? I thought I'd introduce myself, but Lita did a good job. The only thing is that I'm kind of proud of, I'm a full-blooded Norwegian American. And third generation rancher, for what that's worth. I live on the same place where I was born, and which is called the County Poor Farm for many, many years. Tonight I thought I'd talk about maybe, first of all, some family history, and then talk about my grandfather and grandmother, and then later talk a little bit about how Highway 2 has changed from those dates. And the last thing I thought, if we don't run out of time, is just talk about my present family. And on the table over there is a picture of my family: Mom, Dad, Marlene, Ruth, Karen, and that was the last time I was 2 years and 9 months old. And then he passed away the next year. So that was, and then there's a picture over there of my grandma and grandpa from, and then some of the County Poor Farm that we grew up in, all of us. It's not there anymore, we had it torn down. But anyway, that's enough of that. I'm going to go way back to my grandpa in Norway, was known as the master carpenter. He helped build a church over there, and he was real proud of an altar that he made. He had a friend he worked with that told him about coming to America to homestead. So he decided to come out over here in 1907 and become a resident here, citizenship. And he got on the train in 1907, Great Northern down here, and went to the land office and filed for a homestead. The first thing they did then was send him out in the country with a locator to pick a spot that hadn't been spoken for. The rules of homesteading is you have to live on the land for 1 year and you own the 160 acres. So they went out of town here, evidently like in a buggy, I suppose, and went out here about where the bowling alley is, and went north on what they call the Jensen Trail, about 8 miles up there. They went west for a mile, and he found a place that he thought would be good farmland. There was another place that he really would have liked that was past him, but anyway, he went back the next spring. He lived there a year, so he owned it. Got on the train, went back to meet this friend he had lived over in Tioga. And the lady that came out to pick him up at the train ended up, you my grandma. So they got married, and that was in '08. And then he found work there and made some money. And in March of '09, they had a baby boy named Ingvar Barstead, and many of you might know Ingvar and his family. There was Marvin and Harvey and Milton. They started, so there's one boy, and then Mom was the oldest of 5 girls on the place. They divorced. He had later on, he had 2 sons over in Norway, and they came to help him develop the farmland. So that was, it was known as the Barstead Coulee up here later on. He was pretty proud of donating land just a quarter mile west of their homestead, and then kind of abandoned the first homestead. He called that the farmstead. Then He saw the need with the homesteaders for a school, so he was in charge of building a school. And that was in, I think, 17, maybe somewhere in there. And called it the Badger Schoolhouse. And my mother went to first grade there and ended up teaching there, but that was a long time ago. The next thing he had was, I think it was 24, that saw the need for a church, so he donated this land for a church. And it's a big, tall, 2-story church, and he called it the Highland Church because it was high on a hill, just about a quarter mile from their place. There's a picture of that in the Lutheran Church, but they actually added it on to the south end of the old existing church. So they moved that into town in 1939. But on the pictures of the compliments in the church, there's a whole list, starting with my mother in the very first one there, for being confirmed in the Highland Church next to their farmstead. Then there was a picture of my Uncle Ingvar Barstead in there, and then there was Agnes Mullick and Bertha Nelson in that same picture. So it's kind of interesting to look back on some of those. And also in that church entrance is the altar that my grandfather built for the Highland Church. Trying to keep thinking back a little bit more. He would break up the farmland and everything. It was took a lot of work. He did everything pretty much with horses. He went to town and came home with a couple more men he could find. My grandma wasn't really happy with all of the family that they had, but they picked rock for 1 month, and when they got paid, they never showed up again. So there's rows and rows of field rock they picked up with horses and using a stone boat. That's kind of a sled that they pull behind the horses and take them over to a fence line or a rock pile. And they, I guess there was some of the neighbors that he had in that area. I can name several of them, but the neighbor that he always wanted that land from was Joe Gerspacher. Maybe some of you remember Ed Gerspacher. I knew him south of Saco, but this is his brother. And later on, Tove came back and saw the need for a better place than that shack he built on his homestead. So he bought that land, so the family moved onto that place. And it had water, that was a big plus. It had a spring, and had hay ground and a little more farmland. Then the operation there went clear over to the Highway 2, where it says Tampico turn off, and just about back to the Badger School. Mom remembers in 1931, well, first of all, a neighbor to the north was Ole and Tina Ankerud. Many of you might know the Ankerud families. They had Seaver was born in 1931, and a friend of mine. But Mom remembers babysitting Seaver. So she was born in 10, and it was shortly getting into the dirty 30s, but when Mom said she could remember seeing from that big house of Anchorage Hall, see the Highland Church over there. And people said they could even see that church from Tampico. Some of the other neighbors up there were the Graving Cooley, or Peter Graving, and there was Andy Fido, and several homesteaders around there. Then times went along, and we'll move on to hear a little bit more about and my uncle Harold, the one that came from Norway, went down to the pork farm to get a supply of firewood. And that night, it was, the date on that would have been December 20th of 1930. And on the way back home, they had a Christmas program going on over at the Baptist school. But when Dove and Harold got back to the home place, they had a gun with him as he jumped off the sled or wagon, and he died that night. It was a sad time for them. So after that, Grandma held on to the place. The Taylor Grazing Act came into play about 1934, I believe, where they came along and paid homesteaders that were leaving a little bit for their land. I think Grandma said she got $3 an acre on the farmland and $2 an acre on the grazing. My uncle had saved enough money, had kept some of the land. He had 800 acres, I guess, and that got matched by BLM land to support that. In the meantime, then, he came down and the firewood they got was from the poor farm. They furnished sidetracked here. The poor farm was a work farm where bachelors, they worked for room and board. They cut ice, they cut wood, they had cattle, they farmed it, and anyway, we kind of grew up on that place. Check my notes here. Don't know how my time is now, I guess. Talking a little bit about the highways. A while back they had a meeting, or a get together here of Tampico and Vandalia, and it was an interesting meeting. I wish I could have been there. But way back when the train came through, Highway 2 was started at the post office and went all the way to Vandalia, almost to Hinsdale. And there wasn't any bridges to speak of at that time. The road that Tove and that locator took was a trail out of Glasgow and went out just about to the bowling alley, and and then went north. But if it would have went a little further, that road pretty well stopped right there at the Richardson place where Loretta and Shorty grew up, the Floyd Oak place, and the Poor Farm Road went all the way to the Tampico Bridge from there. So access from the homesteaders came down. The first place to come down by was right across from where we live. There's a hay yard there now, but then the next one was up at the Nelson turnoff. The road came down. It hit Poor Farm Road, and then crossing Cornwalls, another road came down, and that the Tampico Bridge was built. So further down, then people got use the Vandalia Bridge. They're both about the same time. But they started building Highway 2, I think, in around 17, and my grandfather was still alive then. But they went across a corner of his land there where the Tampico sign is, and built a highway then where it is today. Fort Peck Dam was coming up pretty quick in the 30s, and it was a lifesaver for all of the homesteaders having to leave. And so anyway, it was interesting to hear about the road. With rural addressing, the name got changed to Riverside Drive, and my neighbor thought it was degrading to be called the Poor Farm Road, so he convinced us to call it a Riverside Drive after a school. And the school is right there by Riggins now, and it was my mother ended up teaching there, and the roadie place was right south of there, and anyway, they ended up buying that roadie place. Glenn, as he is here, he had some history. I think his name was it Frank Roadie? Jane? I think, but anyway, that's where Marlene and Ruth were living at the time, and it was a short time later then they Harold Barstead, my uncle, had bought the pork farm after it shut down, and wanted to go back to Norway and get his new family started. I don't know. How we doing?
We're doing still good. I'll let you know.
Okay. Let's see. I'm just going to double check here. It was tough times back then. Back on the pork farm, Uncle Harold registered alfalfa seed and did quite well with that. He had to pick weeds to make it registered. And my dad talked a little bit about him. He came from Norway too to become a citizen here. He worked really hard at speaking correct English. And he came in and had a relative up at the Eggstead place up in the grain community north of Nashua. And that's where he met my mom. And they were married. I didn't get to know my dad very well. I visited a little with Hartwig Yorsho one time. He said my dad was out working on a tractor and was frustrated because he was pointing at this problem, call it the gasser instead of the carburetor. So I'm trying to. So anyway, they came back and took over the pork farm, and it was a big, tall, two-story house, and there's some history over there on that is. And later on, we grew up. Mom raised all four of us kids. There was my sister Karen was 6 months old, and I was 2 and 3/4 old years, and Marlene 6 and 7 years old. So she had her hands full, and was bound and determined to keep the farm going. And the help of neighbors was great. Floyd Doak was there to help, and the Potters and Rices and Riggins and Bladders and Christianias. They lived up the road there close to us. And we were poor, so the pork farm, it still was a pork farm, but the county didn't own it. I guess, trying to think of anything else there. I think we're in pretty good shape here, aren't we? So I think maybe I could go on to a little history of being fortunate to. My dad was so proud of the one improvement they made is in 1947, before he died, they got electricity. That was a pretty valuable thing to happen. And it took place of a wind charger up on the roof that when the wind would blow, it would shake the whole upstairs. We could still hear it, but I had a 32-volt battery radio and one light bulb or something like that. It wasn't much, but two things that were really important was electricity and water. We never had running water or indoor toilet or anything, but we and heated with wood before that. But Mom's biggest thing was to get a refrigerator and an electric stove, and then even the electric washing machine. Beat their old Maytag washer. It had an exhaust pipe out in the corner. And she milked cows, and we had chickens, and raised and then she did a lot of things. Amazing woman. So where I learned my history on the homesteaders was riding with her all the time, and so lived here. Just kind of filled me in on life. So anyway, I think I've talked long enough. So thanks a lot.
Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything? Mary?
I want to know more about the Poor Farm Hospital. Did they have medical staff that actually helped people out, or how'd that work?
Okay, what I know about it is the Poor Farm was built for the county and the bachelors, but they also had a homesteader that lived just a quarter mile north of there with a name of Hammernesses. And they had a caretaker's home there that had a lot of medical facilities to help treat the bachelors there. And they had a large family too. Some of the Hammerness, Alice Nelson, clerk of court here for years ago, she was a Hammerness, and Ella Blicken was a Hammerness, and the C family kind of is a Hammerness. And so anyway, there was a large family that way too. All I know is in the old medicine cabinet there was a lot of things, and I were in that caretaker's house that was falling down. There was things that needed medical attention. There was different things, and they had a lot of workhorses in that Poor Farm base, farm with work. But that's where the hospitalization came, I think, was through the caretakers.
I thought that I don't know if I read it somewhere or what, but I thought I heard somewhere that if people needed food, they could also, like somebody from town, could also go out there and they either had to help out or else they could get like vegetables or whatever from the garden. Did they have a big garden?
That pretty much is what it was. They did a lot of gardening. There was a little patch there irrigating in front of the house there. They had a lot of, helping people out came out. I don't know, just not a lot of history on there. A couple things I have forgot about was, I'm going to switch gears again, but on the Poor Farm Road, there was 2 dynamite houses. People ask about them, and there's a picture over there on the table. It's still in the envelope. I have one picture of the one powder house. The other one was a fairly new one. As kids, we broke the padlock off of it, and there was nothing in it but a skeleton of a cat. The other house, we had the earth builders widen the highway from Glasgow out to the Poor Farm Road, and they used the gravel from our land there, the gravel pit, and they were questioning the dynamite house with that, and they called Lewis down, and they came up and opened the door, and they said that the dynamite hadn't been turned and it was ready to blow up if they drove a cat over it, so they burned the dynamite and then tore it down. It was kind of interesting, but I don't know, the date on there showed it back in the 1800s, and I kind of question that, but...
What had they used the dynamite for to begin with?
You know what, someone said maybe the railroad, and then maybe it was Vandalia Dam in that era, but I really questioned what it was used for. No, Marshall Wells and Strong Logan were the ones that handled it and sold it, and they'd come out and get, I think Billy Uphouse was out there once and helped them load up. So,
we used it for, blowing, beaver dam, Leonard.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, yeah.
And you had to go through the Bureau of Reclamation, which was on irrigation, to get a certificate, then you went to Marshall Wells, I don't know whether it's for Marshall Wells or Wells and Tom Logan, Ernie Logan. And then Kenny Miller worked there and he went out. Did you get the iron door off that? 'Cause I've been out to that dynamite shack.
Well, I didn't get the door, but I got some steel plating and made some signs out of that heavy plating.
They had it all in sawdust and stuff in that dynamite.
Yeah,
That was across the road where you live, wasn't it?
it was.
If I remember right.
We always laugh because we can.
But you had to get permission with the heavy problem. We had beaver problem. A lot of guys on the irrigation canal did.
We could run across top of it.
And you got a permit to go out there, and Kenny Miller would go out there and get you the dynamite.
Yeah.
You kept the cap separate from the dynamite.
Yeah.
Got a fuse? Fuse,
No,
one foot of fuse loaded with a minute. So if you figure you'd walk away where you set it, get 2 feet of fuse, so you got 2 minutes to get away. Don't run, you fall.
well,
Walk away.
sure. I remember Clarence King was a friend, and he got some dynamite from up there, and well, from Wells Fargo, but he blew a hole down for our irrigation pump. It did work good for different things. So, I was going to mention back on the iron off the top of that old dynamite house, made signs. Bob Potter he instigated with the Rices to put signs up where homesteaders were going up to Jensen Trail, and I kind of followed through there, and there's one for the Badger Schoolhouse, and then where the homesteads was, and where the church was, and then another one, the Seaver Anchor joined me, and there's one on the fence line there pointing towards land that we own now. That was Ole's, where the big white house was, and the other arrow showed towards Tina, where his mother had a home. Anchorage still own that part, and we have the other part. But that house, big white house at Anchorage, was moved to Tampico there in about 37 or something like that, put across the tracks. And I guess that was about all on the homesteader days. So,
Anybody else have a comment or question?
One of the things in that book that you're talking about was the history of the medical people that would have been kept there at the pork farm. That is really interesting. Looking back, I found some of my husband's way that family, they would come in with maybe it was pneumonia or whatever it was, and it would have their name, and it would say what they came in for, and then it would be maybe there were how many days they were there, and then it would be they died, or it's very and it was interesting because they were named, and I knew way back that it was all those.
My family came from Macomb County, and I found 2 of my family in there, just like thumbing through, and all of a sudden I saw their name, and yeah, so they must.
Really very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
We had a lot of tragedies and stuff too with, my cousin and I decided we were gonna go down by the riverbank and watch it or play around there or something.
In the winter,
In the ice
winter.
winter, yeah, and she fell into the river in the ice. And searched and found her body about, just outside of town.
yeah,
Yeah, so I always felt very guilty that I didn't have caught her,
it was.
done something different.
She was the daughter of Tiger Butte Bob Jackson, who married my aunt Ingeborg. Actually, everybody called her Inks. But and
Those kind of memories stay with you forever. I think that I
yeah,
Dr. Wilson?
oh,
When it gets really cold around here, like 40 below zero, I always wonder how the homesteaders and the early pioneers stayed warm. I mean, did they have natural gas lines? Or what?
Lots of wood.
it was pretty much firewood.
Fire.
Yeah, and coal, a little bit of coal too.
We had a big one in the middle of the living room, and everybody, when it was cold, everybody ran for that and got stood there.
That was oil burner stoves there, plus the old kitchen, wood stove. Loretta, you had something?
A little bit about what Ruthie was talking about. I remember, the part I remember is, Kay, wasn't it?
Kay, yes.
Okay. She wore a snowsuit and it was all buttoned up. But Ruthie had a bad habit of not buttoning her coat. And they both fell in the water, but Ruthie's coat floated and they were able to grab her and get her out. And poor Kay just went down like a bullet. And your mom always said it was really hard to get after her for not buttoning her coat.
I must not have gotten too much trouble. I knew what I had done wrong.
Yeah.
But they didn't find her, Kay's body until it almost Glasgow.
They had an airplane fly over and found it in the spring. So it was, when the church, when they moved the Highland Church into town, my grandfather was buried there along with a couple other kids, but they all got moved into Glasgow and then the Potters up here.
So when you say that church was part of the old Lutheran church, is that the church that burned down? Or is
Yes,
that the church now?
It's one that burned down and it was added on to the existing one there.
Oh, so it's on there right now?
Well, no, it's on the old.
Oh,
it
on
was
the one
built
that,
on.
oh,
It was added on before the fire, and then the part
Okay.
burned down with it.
Okay, I think the time's about up.
Yeah. Anybody else want to make a comment or anything? Otherwise, I'll take that kind. Otherwise, we do have some refreshments over there. If anybody would like to have a treat, you're welcome, like I said, to look at the book and Leonard's pictures and things over there. And hopefully we'll see you guys at our next program.
And we should sing happy birthday to him.
Oh. I'll let somebody else start that.